Hello and welcome everyone. This is a very special episode for all of us here as it is the last Security Weekly of the year. Hard to believe, right? Not to worry though, as we wrap up this year, I've got great news for you. Security Weekly will enter a whole new decade with you. So starting from January 2020, we'll be covering the latest batch of tech and cybersecurity events and news from around the world with the same zeal and ardor as we did in 2019. Yes, it is that time when we look at the year gone by, reflecting, thinking, looking back for clues at what the future might hold. It certainly has been a tumultuous 365 days, a year of high-profile attacks and scandal. Often, we covered stories which evolved over time. We continuously saw a rise of third-party supply chain attacks in the US and elsewhere, something we'll likely see more of in 2020. China was featured heavily as this nation grows ever stronger, not only economically, but also with its tech reach and influence. I won't make any more predictions in this episode, but I've assembled the top 10 stories of the past year which have made a lasting impact on us. So sit back and enjoy as we rewind 2019 and see you in the next decade. On to the US government shutdown. So we won't get into the politics, I promise, just the consequences of the impasse in Washington at the moment, known as the US government shutdown. Now, the longest in the country's history. It's been over 25 days as we film this report right now, so it's probably been longer by the time you watch this. We already informed you last week that over 80 government websites are no longer accessible due to the fact that their TLS certificates have expired. So basically agencies like NASA and the Justice Department are some of those government agencies that are affected by all this. And that's over 800,000 federal workers that are furloughed at the moment. That means critical IT staff and cybersecurity experts are not on hand. They're just not there. That's bad news for everybody. Maintaining current operations, infrastructure, it's all going offline. So that means potential further damage, even by phishing, due to less monitoring. So our advice to federal workers, in fact everybody in the US, be vigilant, especially now, when everyone is back at work, which we hope is very, very soon. Take this as a chance to really do a thorough security check with everything. Was that normal baseline activity in the past few weeks? Check all the activity. Are there any outliers? Don't get bogged down by the shutdown. AI, machine learning, biometrics, they are absolutely fascinating elements of our digital transformation, though they are not immune from fault or error. According to researchers at MIT, Amazon's facial analysis software recognition has difficulty distinguishing gender among certain ethnicities. So after some experiments, they concluded that recognition mistakenly identified pictures of women as men and darker-skinned women as men 19% and 31% of the time. So to give you some comparison, Microsoft's equivalent was around 1.5%. Unauthorized access at Airbus, one of the world's biggest aerospace manufacturers, has been breached. The company stated that the incident has affected its commercial aircraft business, though Airbus claims that there has been no impact on daily operations. The folks at Airbus are trying to play this one down, I think, but they have admitted that some personal data connected to IT identification had been stolen. According to some sources close to the manufacturer, there is speculation that the Chinese hacker group APT10 is behind the attack. Of course, Airbus invests massive amounts of capital into R&D, and this could have been an attempt to steal valuable technical IP. 59,000, that's the number of breach notifications to regulators of GDPR since it came into effect on May 25th last year. According to the law firm DLA Piper, that's 7,300 breach reports each month. The notifications vary in severity from minor, such as accidental email forwarding, to major ones, which affected millions, such as the Marriott International breach last year. At the top of the breach table was the Netherlands, which reported most breaches last year, followed by Germany. Fines have also been dished out. In fact, there have been 91 of them. And of those fines, 61 of them have been given to German organizations, putting them at number one for penalties. Doing business in China may get a whole lot less private for foreign companies. According to international security experts, the Chinese government will soon have new laws in place which will provide the authorities there with more reach to censor and spy on international companies present and operating in China. So the Chinese Ministry of Public Security will be able to conduct remote pen testing and on-site inspections of any company with 5 or more internet-connected computers. So that's essentially all international companies in China today. The Chinese authorities will be able to copy user information, audit for prohibited content, so censorship in other words. The scope of the new laws is so wide that it may allow Chinese security staff to access parts of a company and not even related to or within China. So that's very invasive, and it's all under the auspices of cybersecurity in China. It's a brand new standard, literally. The European Telecommunications Standards Institute, or ETSI for short, has introduced a globally applicable European standard which is designed to guide improvements in security for consumer IoT devices. It's hoped that this new standard will motivate manufacturers to improve built-in privacy and security protections and providing consumers a better way to compare and differentiate products available on the market. This marks another step in an increase of global security regulation, which includes GDPR from the EU, the IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act in the US. So this kind of international standardization means that companies and governments are coming to terms with providing good security practices across the whole supply chain on a truly global scale. Most healthcare organizations in the US and Europe are well aware of the threats that are posed by cyber attacks and not protecting their vital data. It seems that it's quite a different story with healthcare providers in the Asian Pacific region. With digital transformation pushing into healthcare, over 45% of providers reporting that they have or are unaware if they have experienced an incident. So that's according to business consulting firm Frost & Sullivan. Losses incurred due to a cyber attack could exceed over $23.5 million. The research highlights a worrying trend in Asia that is digital transformation strategies don't embed strong security or privacy elements, so posing a considerable risk factor that could be exploited by insider or external misuse. Russia has passed a new law which will ban the sale of some devices that are not pre-installed with Russian software. The new regulation will come into effect in July of 2020 and will apply to computers, smartphones, and smart TVs. The officials behind this move claim it will promote Russian technology and make it much easier for people in the country to use the devices and gadgets that they purchase. However, it does make one wonder of the consequences. There are concerns that firms could leave the Russian market and that the law would enable increased surveillance by the Russian government. Foreign manufacturers will still be able to sell their devices in the country, but will require that Russian software will be a necessity in each product. This comes just weeks after Russia introduced a new controversial control on the internet via its own sovereign internet law, which in theory allows the country to restrict and effectively run its very own national internet. The Russian state claims this is all part of a wider strategy to increase cybersecurity, while critics fear a firewall much like that of China is in the works. Once again, the public sector is under attack in the United States as hackers have struck and infected 23 Texan towns with ransomware. According to one local mayor, the attackers are demanding $2.5 million to unlock municipal files. The FBI and state cybersecurity experts are investigating the breach, which has mainly affected smaller local governments. It is not clear who or what is behind the attack that has taken systems offline. Though, according to the Texas Department of Information Resources, the evidence seems to point to one single threat actor. So one of the burning questions will be, is this a domestic group or could it be a foreign actor? The attack has made official government business nigh on impossible, as birth and death certificates aren't available online, cities cannot accept utility payments, and that's just to name a few of the consequences of this latest incursion into local government. A few things make this latest incident very worrying. Experts are calling it a new front due to the coordinated nature of this attack and the large scale, which encompass so many different targets at the same time. Another noteworthy fact, many local government officials say that the hackers got into IT software used by the city and managed by an outsourced third-party company, which supports many of the other municipalities targeted. So it will be the case that security arrangements by third parties will be under the microscope a lot. It comes at a time which has shown a staggering amount of attacks, over 60 this year alone, which are aimed at state and local governments, including Baltimore, the Georgia court system, various cities in Florida, and a county in Utah, to name just a few. This will hopefully serve as a wake-up call to governments and policymakers on all levels to show the vulnerability and exposure of not just large cities, but every community, no matter how remote. In a truly global first, an alleged crime committed in space raises questions about jurisdiction in orbit and the term space crime. No, it's not sci-fi, it's actually very real. NASA is currently investigating what could be considered the first criminal wrongdoing perpetrated in space. A decorated astronaut and Army helicopter pilot has been accused of illegally accessing her spouse's bank account during her stay on the International Space Station. NASA and other relevant authorities are investigating and have yet to decide if the event will be defined as a crime. Whatever the outcome, it is a case which raises questions and concerns about how we handle criminal activity in space in the future as the commercial space industry continues to expand. What is also noteworthy that, if prosecuted, which jurisdiction will be considered. The nature of the alleged wrongdoing deals with financial data, personal info, passwords, and generally info security. Something to observe closely, and certainly it won't be the last time we hear of such an outwardly event.